Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Beer Guys Radio. We're getting into the autumn season here. It's actually been feeling a little autumnal, as they say. And I'm not a fan. I like this stuff that goes along with the cooler weather, but I don't like the cool weather. Like, I don't like waking up in the morning with a bit of chill, which is totally contradictory to the fact that I love going to sleep in a cool bed. You know, you go to sleep in a cool, but I don't want to wake up, you know, chattering teeth and bones and all that. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I just need to set my thermostat, learn how to work my thermostat a little better.
Or you could buy some blankets, Tim.
I got blankets, man. I got blankets. But so, you know, sometimes the comfortable temperature when you go to bed, I swear that like 68 to 72 degrees when you go to bed is a total different temperature than 68 to 72 degrees when you're waking up. And summer and winter, the temperatures don't make sense. They're different. It must be the humidity in the air that does that. But anyhow, good beers coming in the fall and winter season. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing well. We've got a lot to talk about this week. We've got the hotness of hop water is a big thing this week. Vintage Corona rumors. And we've got a big new non-alcoholic beer coming down the pipeline very soon. But we also have Mo Mike Nate. How are you doing, Mo Mike Nate?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here with you boys and talk beer.
Beer. We were talking about lunch before we got on the show. And if you've been listening to the show, you know, Brian and I, we're dabbling with conservas now, the 10 seafoods, 10 fishes, sardines and stuff. And I found one that I really like. They're called Baltic Gold, and they are sprats, small sardines, smoked and served in olive oil. And so I had some of those, and we're talking, and Nate said he had a Caesar salad for lunch. Nate, tell us about your Caesar salad.
Well, my Caesar salad to begin with did not have anchovies on it, which I know is usually common with a Caesar salad. And then I got caught out because my Caesar salad is dry. I do not take dressing with my Caesar salad. I do take olive oil and vinegar, though, so it's not completely dry.
So you think that putting croutons and Parmesan cheese into a bowl of lettuce made it a Caesar salad? Is that right? I just want to verify here.
It's a Caesar salad with an asterisk.
Okay, that's in air quotes around Caesar salad.
There was the Parmesan cheese, though, right? Because I wasn't sure if that was a part of it too. Okay, all right. So it's
Parmesan cheese, scratch black pepper, croutons, olive oil, and vinegar, and lettuce.
We've already got someone complaining about my complaining. Stan told me to quit complaining that cool days are the best. Stan, we appreciate you being here and sharing your wrong opinion with us. It's always nice to have feedback from the community. Stan is one of the owners of Neutral Ground Brewing Company in Fort Worth, Texas. And Stan, you just won a People's Choice Award, I believe, for I forget the magazine. I believe Fort Worth Magazine, maybe People's Choice for best brewery there in Fort Worth. So congrats to Neutral Ground Brewing Company on the prestigious award. Brian,
indeed,
you shared as we're coming in here, and I want to come out of the gate with this one because I have some personal info to share on this story, but tell us what's happening or what happened with Corona.
So, not the coronavirus. We're talking about the beer this time. And I was just browsing through the beer news this week, and VinePair put out a story on the old Corona rumors, and I've never actually read about it. I've heard the rumors because I'm old enough. Anyway, it all started in 1987, and the rumors were there was urine in Corona, and a Chicago-based beer wholesaler had just started shipping Corona to the northeastern states when this happened. And it snowballed. People were talking about it all over the place. There was a rumor that went around back in the day that on 60 Minutes, they had video footage of a sewage ditch feeding directly into Corona's brewery. And that was a rumor that went around that because this was in the days before the internet, we're talking late 80s, nobody could disprove this. Like everybody just assumed it actually ran on there. So it turns out that the rumors were started by a competing beer wholesaler from Reno, Nevada, and they were eventually sued for $3 million over this because it was all false. It just none of it was actually true. They apparently settled out of court. There was no actual description of what the real money was, but Corona wound up paying $500,000 in late 80s money on a PSA about the hoax because their sales abruptly went from growing to flat. That's how bad the rumors were. So that's a lot of money went down. So this is back before Corona was the big default beer that you would have on the coast or in
the beach
any kind
beer.
of it's the beach beer. You're kicking back beer. This is early days, so it was nearly derailed by these crazy urine rumors. So
that's crazy. So I do have some personal input on this, and I will say that before we came on, I did Google libel and slander. And the at the essence of these, if you're telling the truth, it's not libelous or slanderous, And for those that aren't aware, libel is written where slander is spoken. So those are the facts. But what I'm telling is a true story. About a decade after this, Brian, so it wouldn't apply in this, but about a decade after this, I worked for a distribution center, and one of their major accounts was Corona. And this particular distribution center had railroad lines, rail tracks that ran right up there. So we got rail cars in full of product. And one of those that would come up straight from Mexico was Corona beer. And we got these rail cars that would come in, and very frequently the inside of the rail cars were filthy. They would just pack trash into them. We found a pair of soiled underwear in a rail car one time, partially eaten food shoved in there. But on more than one occasion, and you could tell from the aroma that it was urine. These pallets, someone would urinate on these pallets before they'd ship out. Now, this is not in the beer. This is on the pallets. The pallets were wrapped in plastic. But when that happened, we had to break these pallets down and wash the bottles. And I say wash, we really just, hooked up a garden hose and rinsed these things down and then dried them off. And they had provided us with a bunch of replacement 6-pack holders. So if we needed to replace those, we just repack them, repalletize them, and ship them out for your enjoyment. So, it was something that, like I said, well, all right, maybe not in the beer, but, rumors of them not being the most sanitary. I don't know about the brewery itself. And breweries are usually going to be pretty clean. You have to maintain some sanitation to keep your beer clean. But once they made it on those rail cars, it was a different story.
Did I hear you say your enjoyment?
For your enjoyment. That's right. For your enjoyment.
Your enjoyment. Yes.
I mean, everybody's got their kinks, you can't kink shame these days, Brian. So if someone enjoys that, you have to let them enjoy it and shut them out.
And the thing about that is once it's getting shipped like that, who knows whose hands were involved in that along the way. So it stands to reason. No,
rail cars are sealed, Brian. Once
are they sealed?
There, they've got it. There's a seal on them. So, and you have to mark this. You have to mark the number and note that you're the person that broke the seal and all of that. So, it is a pretty controlled thing. So, unfortunately, there was really only one source of that. So,
Okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. All right. So that's really interesting stuff.
It was.
Wouldn't have expected that, considering you said it was a decade after the rumors.
This was a decade after the rumors. I mean, this was the late 90s when I worked for them. So again, not in the beer, but the rail cars and the pallets that came in were not the most sanitary things. That's for sure.
Nate, did you ever, because you're a little bit younger than us, did you ever hear about these rumors about Corona, or is this all fairly new to you?
This is all new to me. I've never heard of this rumor that turned out to be a hoax.
Okay, because I did hear about it in the late 90s. People still made reference to it, but it was the kind of reference where people were saying it while they were drinking it, and they weren't really they really didn't believe it, but it was kind of comical. So
I always kind of took them the same. I took them kind of the same way of people talking like Bud Light urine. The jokes that you'll make there. There was I've been to breweries before where the urinals were Bud Light kegs that they cut up and put in there, stuff like that. So, and then I went to another brewery that their water tap said free Bud Light or something like that. So you go, that's kind of the way I always took them. And I remember hearing people joke that was why you put a lemon in it, was to offset the urine taste there. So I don't know. Crazy stuff. Stephen Pete, cheers to you, sir. Cheers to Kettle Rock. Always good to see you here. Thank you much. You should do a Corona clone. We have some name suggestions for you. I don't know if you'll like them, Stephen, but we have suggestions.
Probably not.
So, Brian, next up, Hop Water, man. So this is Hop Water's been around for a minute. And I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. We talked to Hop Lark that did hop waters and hop teas. And hop tea is in brewed teas with hops in them. But Hop Water's on the rise, huh?
Yeah. I've been seeing people talking about it throughout the year on social media, but it's really gotten legs. And there was a big article written about it this week. And it's so when I first tried it, and I don't know if you thought the same thing. It was probably Hop Lark, and I'm like, oh, this is an interesting concept, but I don't know if I see this having legs. And I liked the I think it was like a Sabro hop water that the Hop Lark had, and I thought it was really good. But I'm like, I don't know. I think this is trying. I don't know if it's ever gonna make it, but apparently, yes, this is the year for hop water, and people are very excited about it. And according to Nielsen IQ, hop water has grown 173% over the 13 weeks ending in July 15th of this year. So it's I didn't realize until I saw that how huge it's gotten. I think a lot of people are making it for their tap rooms. There's varying rates of hop utilization in there. Some people are heavily hopping it, and the in some cases the hop water is almost as expensive as, say, like a Kolsch or a Pilsner to produce. In other places they're going a little bit lighter with it. I also learned, and I didn't know this, that it's not just hops and water. Almost every brewery that was mentioned in this article uses a citric acid in it to achieve both their pH goals, so it's at the right acidity level, and to, I guess, stabilize the product. So there's a little bit more to it than hops and water, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. And another thing I learned is that people are using hop water in cocktails, which I think this might appeal to Mo Mike Nate as a resident cocktail enthusiast there. But Lagunitas has a set of cocktails that are in a booklet you can download, a PDF, for their hoppy refresher. That's their hop water. I think they may have started the game. They're credited with starting this whole thing off, and they're using it as an ingredient. I looked through it, and actually a couple of them seem like there was potential there. So I
are
may
they
need
all
to
vodka and gin based? I would think they would have to be, because any brown liquors, I feel like you just dilute them.
Yeah, I think they're added as a small amount, and you're looking for some of the hop botanicals to be added. I think it was a riff on a Negroni in there that I saw. And but yeah, there were some gin things and some vermouth things that were involved in it, and all of that sounded pretty interesting. So I mean, I'm wondering, do you guys think? I think that one of the ideas being put forward is this is kind of the answer to the lack of non-alcoholic options on tap at various locations. This is something that can be put out pretty quickly. It's not very likely to spoil or cause any issues or have real problems with it. So what do you guys think about hop water?
So I think it's something that can be a little polarizing because so many people just don't like IPAs. And so if you're just going to add water, a little acid to balance, and then water and hops, a little bit of acid, I'm not sure that that's going to have as much widespread appeal as some of these breweries that are putting out the seltzers they're putting out are alcoholic. So yeah, a draft an A option could be good.
I am personally not a fan, and I could see for the hop heads how there's an appeal to that, but I am not a hop head, so to speak. So I don't really, I don't crave like a hop water or anything. It's just not a beverage that I personally would reach for, just because, and there are hops that I enjoy and there are hoppy beers that I enjoy, but in all honesty, I'd probably reach for a seltzer water, just a lemon lime or a grapefruit seltzer before I'd go for a hop water. Brian, what about you?
So I like them, and I want to say the thing about them is they fall off really fast. I don't know. I think faster than beer. I don't know if it's and I think they're usually in cans when I see them, so it's not even like light strucks type of situation. But I have bought hop water from a convenience store. It's like, oh hey, hop water, that looks neat. only to find out, even though it's been refrigerated, that stuff is falling off so fast. So that would be my biggest concern is like, is this fresh? Like if I saw it on tap somewhere, I like the idea. I would order it. And especially if it was carbonated, I think I would be very into that. As a convenience store purchase or just a bottle shop purchase, I don't know. I think that it fades too quickly. I need to know it's fresh, and I think that the draft angle is the way to go with that. So that's my thought on it.
Isn't the Lagunitas Hoppy Refresher, isn't that actually in a clear glass bottle?
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. And usually sits on a warm shelf, too.
Along those notes, I wonder if they're not boiling the hops. They're not isomerizing the hops, because if they don't isomerize the alpha acids, then they wouldn't be susceptible to being light struck. And I think that I could be mistaken here. If we got one of our brewers in the chat, please clarify. But I think the protection that you get from hops is from the isomerized alpha acids. So that could also explain the necessity to add a little citric acid to stabilize things. So I think I'm wrong there. I think it's just they're naturally, antiseptic? I forget. I don't know my hop science.
I want to say
Hieronymus. He could tell us all about it.
Yeah, let's get paging Stan Hieronymus.
Yeah, but that could be it. So, but apparently no fear of being light struck if Lagunitas is putting theirs out in a clear glass bottle.
I had forgotten about that. Yeah, it's very. I don't think I've ever had the Lagunitas one. I need to give that a shot because I would really like to try the cocktails with it and see. I want to see if it holds up well over time, and I want to see how it tastes in a cocktail because I think there's potential there. I really do. I think there's something. Hops can add something to, cocktails. I could see that definitely being a thing.
Maybe you could do a series of TikTok videos reviewing hop waters and make it the next TikTok trend, Brian.
There you go.
Oh, could I?
Yeah, because I know you love TikTok trends. And did you know the latest one, Brian? Did you know that Gen Zers are decarbonating White Claws and Truly seltzers? And they're taking like a milk frother, like you'd use for a cappuccino. And for those that aren't familiar with the way those work, there's a couple of different ones. Some look like a little wand that's got like a coiled whisk on the end.
Yeah, the little thing at the bottom.
The little round coil, and you put that in there, and in milk it will froth if you stick it down in milk like a mixer. But apparently it's also very good for breaking carbonation out of suspension and getting it out there. So,
I can see that. Yeah.
So the TikTokers are decarbing this and using the milk frothers to remove the CO2. And apparently it is inspirational for a new Coors RTD cocktail coming out soon, Brian. And I believe that's called Happy Thursday. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I saw a press release for that. Happy Thursday. I guess they're trying to encourage people to christen Thursday as the beginning of the weekend for alcohol consumption purpose.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's the idea behind that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Maybe this will mean if they like lower carb, maybe they're going to keep the cask ales growing. They could get out there with those low carb beers, or even better, maybe they could go to like still lambics and stuff and get people. Because I'd get on board with that if we had more still lambics, some lambics in a bag.
Yeah,
I would be all about that.
If this eventually, if they get past the drinking of borax and the eating of Tide Pods, and they make it to a point where they're drinking cask ales, that's charcuterie, drinking cask ales and still lambics, I can see there's some hope for our future. There really is. I like that idea. I think it's weird being shy about CO2. I guess I understand the carbonic acid, but that's an attraction for me in things in your seltzers. Like if you take that out of the hard seltzer, what do you have? You've got
flavored water.
Yeah,
I don't
understand. Well, I guess you got alcohol there, don't you, Nate? So that's
that's it.
Alcoholic water. Again, if you want alcoholic flat water, let's make it lambic. Let's do that.
Seriously.
Or just
make it complex.
People start drinking flavored vodka, please. There's no. You're adding extra steps here. You're adding extra steps. Get you a little vodka. So I was going to say soda, but we're bringing carbonation back into the game there, so we can't do that. So just get you a little. They have mineral water that's not sparkling.
They
can get them some flavored vodka, some still mineral water, and they're already there with less work. They don't have to break out their milk frothers.
Well, less work and less dollars because hard seltzer is expensive.
Yeah.
Flavored vodka is cheaper for a fifth.
It is. I think it's like $3 a gallon these days because it's raw good. Yeah. Throw some Hubba Bubba into some cheap vodka. Boom. Sell it.
Didn't people used to put Jolly Ranchers or jelly beans into vodka to make?
Probably vodka
and Zimas.
Yeah. So I mean, you could make this super cheap. And there was at one point like a huge boom in flavored vodkas, and I think we may market may have crashed, but we may be seeing that come back now when people realize that, hey, you know what? Instead of making my a White Claw flat, I could just drink vodka with flavor already added, and that's the same.
That's
thing.
It, man. That's it. You know, Brian, I know you still are, probably not as much as you used to be, and me definitely not as much. But we used to be into cigars quite a bit, and that was a big thing when they were coming to regulate cigars, and they were trying to get rid of flavored cigars. You know, because there's a big brand from Drew Estate called Acid, and these are the tobaccos. They're premium cigars, but they're infused with botanicals and different things. And then there's also ones that are, I'm not trying to be sexist, but they said, you know, these are geared towards the ladies, stuff like Tatiana and little ones, but they would be vanilla flavored, coffee cream flavored, stuff like that. And they were saying that this is marketing to children, was basically what the point was, that they needed to ban these flavored cigars because it was marketing to children. But you'd go in a liquor store and see you'd see bubblegum and cotton candy vodka, you know? So, I mean, cigars weren't trying to throw cotton candy, Hawaiian Punch, double Fruit Loop. That's beer these days, but
that is beer and vodka.
Yeah. But, you know, that was a big point that the cigar community made is, you know, you're telling us this is marketing to kids, but we don't hear you complaining about all these flavored vodkas hitting the market. So, you know. And to be honest, Brian, a lot of those flavored cigars, I mean, you've got ones like the Swisher grapes and that are no one's smoking those because they enjoy them. You know, no one's going to that. There's a good chance if you're buying Swisher grapes that you're going to split that sucker down the middle and fill it with your own products there. So
yeah, it's a delivery system for another compound entirely.
Yeah. Yes. I do know a fella that I think they have one that's like supposed to be red wine flavored. And a cigar, maybe a backwoods or something like that. But and he claims he loved those black and milds. I think maybe a black and mild red wine.
It is black and mild. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. You a fan, Nate? You little red wine?
I sold a lot of them.
Red wine, black and mild.
I sold a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah.
What else did you sell with them?
Flavored vodka.
Yeah, acid cigars and flavored vodka.
There you go, man. There you go. Yeah. Nate, you got a story that you brought to our attention here that I think is pretty darn interesting. If you're on any of the social medias, you follow any beer news, then you've heard this story. This is actually, interestingly enough, a local story because the guy behind this brand is in our neck of the woods, that they say. And the gentleman that is brewing this beer, we do know him, a good guy. We've known him for several years, and he's been in the Georgia brewing community for many, many years. Ultra Right beer. Again, I love Glenn and Iron Shield Brewing and that. This beer, I think, is just absolutely insane, but there's a lot of people that love it. But tell us what the latest is on this Ultra Right beer, Nate.
So, Ultra Right is founded by a former Trump campaign manager, Seth Weathers. But we all remember seeing Trump's mugshot all over social media, all over the news back in August. Well, now he's selling 6-packs featuring Trump's mugshot in monochrome on a black background for $25 a 6-pack plus shipping.
There you go.
Now, $25 a 6-pack, I'm not rushing out to go get one. But how many 6-packs do y'all think got sold in the first 24 hours?
5.
100?
Try 20,000.
Oh,
so he's claiming it's being reported that 20,000 6-packs were sold to the tune of a gross about $500,000.
Are these pastry stouts? Because if it's $25 for a 6-pack, I'm hoping for pastry stouts or pastry porter. I mean, we could dial it back a little bit. More drinkable ones.
I got to disappoint you. These are closer to a Corona or a Bud Light in consistency and flavor.
Sorry, no.
So the wild thing about it is when we did the math and we broke it down, it was about 360 barrels worth of beer were sold in the first 24 hours of this. And then he's gone on. At this point, the sale has ended. It ended on Sunday. He predicted that they would clear $2 million in the sale.
Okay.
I haven't seen any updated numbers on that, but the math blows my mind.
So, man, I don't know. So here's the thing. For those that may not know the scale of that, talk about 350 barrels of beer. Some of your smaller neighborhood breweries, that's what they brew in a year. Like legitimately some smaller brew pubs or your neighborhood brewery, they may brew 350 barrels in a year. So that's the volume that we're talking about, from these. And these are breweries that are pretty steady a few nights a week. So it's not a small amount. 20,000 six packs is a lot of beer, and that's when you start thinking about a huge production, you may think a number like 20,000 isn't that massive. But when it's all about scale there, that's Sam Adams was famous for one time. He made the comment, Anheuser-Busch spills more beer on the floor in a year than we brew. And the person chuckled at him. He's like, no, that's a factual statement. They legitimately spill more than we brew in a year. That's just the scale there. So this is massive. I mean, that kind of sales are insanely massive. And I hate to say it, man, shows he's got a lot of support for what he's doing there, or people who just wanted it to be, to be funny.
I have to ask, and you know what? I imagine there are some people that would buy it either in support or against it,
right,
for both reasons.
Right.
Both people would find it amusing. Is there a connection to Trump himself? Is some of this going to Trump, or is this guy just pocketing all this, like just a brilliant maniacal genius, So
10% of every sale is going to Trump's defense fund.
Okay. All right.
So that's what he's doing. So after that initial $500,000 sold, 50,000 went to.
Because I thought he was
defense fund.
I thought he was straight up exploiting people that were, on that side, and I'm like, wow, okay,
well, isn't it? I mean, giving money to Trump, he claims he's worth $4,700 billion. So.
I think that's the exact figure too. So, I was just curious. I haven't been following this too closely. I occasionally see people make references to it. Oh, I saw that recently on the shelf. I'd never seen it before.
The ultra right?
Yeah, the ultra right. I saw the actual, and I saw the price. I'm like, that's amusing, but I'm not spending that on a 6-pack of beer. I'm probably not going to drink or enjoy. But I was surprised to see it because I thought this was like a fly-by-night quick money grab by somebody, and I guess they're sticking around doing this stuff.
Yeah,
kind of crazy.
Yeah, he had a ton of people calling him a grifter, saying that he's grifting on through here. So that's Stan here said in the chat, he said he'd take a 350 barrel pre-order. So he'll be happy to do that. If you have any controversial political beers, just reach out to Stan. He'd love to brew something very controversial and make at least half of his customers angry. And that's that's the scoop. And I should back up a little bit, and I will say this, talking about that we know the person brewing it. I asked him directly if he was brewing the beer, and his response to me was basically, due to NDAs and such, I cannot disclose what we do here. But I will say that any customer we take on, we hope we brew them the best possible beer we can. So I believe there's probably some label stuffs out there that could probably verify it. I have not personally verified it, but I do want to make that clear. I think we know where it's coming from, but I was just Googling libel and slander. Let me make sure here. So.
It's been independently pointed in that direction, but you know what? These are just voices on the internet. You have no idea.
I think there may have even been some social posts that confirm that. I just don't remember for sure. So I'll leave it at that for now. But interesting stuff, man. I saw that mugshot, one of those, not really a parody news story, but kind of parody news channel, but one that just does humorous news that's factual. He went out to a rally, and there was a gentleman wearing the Trump mugshot on a shirt. And it said Trump 2024, and at the bottom it said never surrender. And the news guy goes up to him. He said, Trump 2024, never surrender, right? The guy's like, yeah, absolutely. Never surrender. He's like, that's Trump's mugshot on that shirt, right? And he said, yeah. He's like, so isn't that literally a picture of him surrendering?
Fair point.
Like, yeah. So he just wasn't show.
It just kind of whoosh. That sound was it flying over his head. That's a fair point because he had to go there. They didn't grab him and pull him in. He officially that would be, I don't know, surrendering, or I don't know what it is.
I get, if you have to. Basically, I think in those kind of things, if they're like, you've got until so and so day to do this, you don't want them to have to come after you. Basically,
correct.
A gentlemanly surrender, like, you have this window of time to visit and surrender.
Right. And Stan said that so everyone knows 10% of his profits will go to his legal defense fund for the firestorm that he creates there.
That's right. Yeah, for all the lawsuits and everything else he'll encounter.
Yeah. I think that would actually make it more fun. Do a controversial beer and say, 10% of proceeds donated, and then in like size 4 font to me to defend me from you people.
That's right.
Gosh, good stuff. Well, guys, let's get into our beers of the week. Which is not an ultra right beer. I don't think any of us have that, but we want to thank our friends at the Nest for sponsoring this segment as we do roll into the cooler months, which it's kind of a roller coaster this time of year in Georgia. We may have a 50-degree night. Halloween could be 110 degrees. We just don't know. So, but when things do cool down, the Nest has a gorgeous patio with a really nice fireplace. And they also have some pretty nice heaters out there, too. So even if things are pretty crispy, you can stay extremely comfortable on the patio at the Nest, still enjoy some fresh fall air, along with good craft beer and barbecue. So if you're in the area, whether it's cool or not, be cool and check out the Nest in downtown Kennesaw, Georgia. So for our beers tonight, from Reuben's Brews and Monday Night, more collaboration, we have Surround Sound, which is a Pilsner. From, I believe it's probably Zool Beer Company, Rhymes Like Dimes, with a Northeast IPA, which took gold in the 2020-2022 World Beer Cup.
One of those years, yes.
One of those years. From Halfway Crooks, the whole Cone Fest Marzen, which we went down to Halfway Crooks this past weekend and enjoyed some of that on draft there. Really good. A nice Marzen and a soft-baked pretzel fresh from the oven. That was really nice. We also have Untitled Art and Collective Arts Brewing, which Cotton Candy IPA. Nate, have you cracked into that one? Does it taste like cotton candy?
It surprisingly does. I just cracked into it.
Okay. All right. There's the flavor. We need to ban those. We got to ban those.
Yeah.
So,
it's for the kids.
Yeah.
For the kids. Yes.
From Good Word Brewing Any Day Now, which is an Italian Pilsner. From Burnt Hickory Brewing, RIP to our good friends at Burnt Hickory, but Big Shanty, a graham cracker stout. That was all the rage a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Big Shanty was a big popular beer here in Georgia and elsewhere. People looked for that one. So that was a nice one. And we also have something special that I'm sipping right now from Highwire Brewing. We have one called 10 Years of Highwire, which, as you might have guessed, is their 10th anniversary beer. This is a blend, and y'all check this out. It is a blend of bourbon barrel-aged 10W40 Imperial Stout, bourbon barrel-aged barley wine, and a bourbon barrel-aged Belgian-style quad. So they're bringing all the big beers to the party, and I like how it came out. So, you start blending these, and I'm not sure. I think the barley wine is the one that kind of steps in the forefront. Like, you blend these different styles, and I think barley wine, I don't get a lot of Belgian note from it. So, I wouldn't go with the quad, but I think the barley wine is front and center here.
Given enough time, doesn't most beer kind of trend into a barley wine? It obviously not with the pastry styles, but like a lot of things move in a barley wine direction over time.
So I just took another sip after saying that and kind of looked for the others, and I think looking for them, I can see it. I can see all right, here's the quad, here's the stout, but they're very cohesive. I think unless you're sitting there and sipping it to say, okay, is this here, that you'd probably just enjoy the beer. You wouldn't think it was segmented or anything there. But these kind of beers, man, this is what this type of weather, this coming weather is for. That's the one thing I do love about it. The thing I don't love about it, guys, you guys know I'm trying to watch my weight, lose some weight here. And this, I believe it's 47,000 calories in this 16-ounce can. Ooh. I think that's what I said.
Probably.
So,
Yeah, at least it's only a can and not a 750.
Right. Yeah. Or even a 19, and it's not even a long beer, Brian.
Yeah. It should be a 19 too. Do you have any idea how old that is? Because I think you said it was from a trip at some point to the Carolinas.
Bruh, you literally bought this a month ago in Chattanooga.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Oh, it's Chattanooga. Oh, I thought you said the Carolinas.
Yeah.
My bad. Oh, yeah.
You okay, B? Can we keep going? You need a break?
It's been a long week already.
Okay, you got
it's only halfway through. So for some reason, was thinking that was something you'd picked up. And you said Chattanooga, but I was thinking Charlotte. I don't know why I was thinking Charlotte.
Fair.
Yeah.
So that probably answers my question. But have you had this yet? If you say yes, you got to go, man. I'm
going to say no. I'm going to say no then.
Okay.
I'm going to say no.
Well, it's good. Well, I recommend it, man. You should check your stash and see. Nate, how about you? Have you seen this one around, or have you had this one?
No, I haven't seen it around, but now I'm definitely be looking for it.
I think that's the only can I've got too. So I can't, but good news. Our friends at Highland Brewing reached out today, and Cold Mountain season is coming. So we're going to have, that's always a favorite, and that will be coming our way before too much longer. Always look forward to getting into that one.
I want to say, I think I saw that in stores, but I don't know if the store had leftover stock. It probably not. I think it might have been new.
I think we might be a little early for it. I don't know. We're into mid-October now, aren't we?
Yeah,
gosh,
we are.
Man, crazy stuff. I had someone the other day like today, they're like, well, let's catch up early November. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to wait that long. That's like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Days, yeah.
So we'll get into it. It seems like it was yesterday. We were waiting for the 1st of September to drink our fest beers, Brian.
Yeah.
And now we're halfway into October.
It seems like just the other day I was yelling at people, it's still summer. And like it was still summer only a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Just a few weeks ago. Sure was. Brian, speaking of the fest beers, we promised that the rest of the year we won't talk about Oktoberfest every year, but it is the time of the year where new news comes out each week. And we have some more stats come out from Don Tess. We follow and chat with Don on the Twitters, X, whatever it is now. But he wrote this article for Forbes with some pretty interesting stats. Do you want to share those with us, Brian?
Yeah, I do. It turns out, and I really like hearing this, this year's festival set an all-time attendance record of 7.2 million people attending. And it's worth pointing out with that number that this was the longest possible fest, and maybe ever. But I think in terms of the way the days in the calendar work out, it's 2 days longer than average, so 18 total days, and it works in with German Unity Day. So that figured into it. But yes, 7.2 million people attended in previous years. So last year it was only 5.7 million. So it's a huge jump from that. In 2019, when it was held before that, because it was skipped in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID, it was 6.3 million. So even that, it's almost a million more people going to that. So that's a really good sign for beer in general. People are going to Oktoberfest. Now, having said that, the actual beer sales are down somewhat, actually more than somewhat. An estimated 6.5 million, quote, measures, and that's what they used in the article. I don't know if that's mass Krugs or not, but 6.5 million measures of beer were served. It's less than one per person, and it was 7.3 million in 2019 when the festival was last held, well, prior to 2022. Okay. So it's down a lot in terms of the amount people are drinking, which, okay, I can kind of see that. That seems to be where the trends are going. But that said, non-alcoholic beverages were up 50% at this year's festival. And food sales were
up how much, Brian?
50%.
That's it. Okay.
Wow.
That's a big jump, man. That's a big jump.
I think that there's a lot of people, and I believe that there are non-alcoholic beer options there, but yeah, people are going to the festival having a good time and drinking non-alcoholic beers or just other beverages. Food sales are up 15%, which is interesting. I wonder how much of that is accounted for by inflation, but we know that everything has gotten more expensive.
We did see something so a famous dish at Oktoberfest is the roast chicken there. And apparently this year they did something where they used like an all organic roast chicken.
Oh, that's right.
And I think it was just at one of the tents. It may have been the Paulaner tent, I think, because I think we commented, I wish we knew about this a few weeks ago, when we talked to Jay from Paulaner. So, but they said they wanted to offer other options there. And half the people said this is ridiculous to pay, whatever the price was for the chicken. But others said, hey, I think this was a better quality chicken. I wanted to try it out because it's something new. And they said it was, a better quality chicken. They really enjoyed it. So, and I think anytime you do stuff like that, the house is going to be divided on it. Some people will enjoy it, some won't. But I did some quick math while you were talking, Brian. I wanted to see what the daily attendance worked out to be, especially with the extra days there. So, with this year, with the attendance of 7.2 million spread over 18 days, that's actually pretty easy math. That's 400,000 a day, four times 18, 72. So, 400,000, 18 days, 7.2 million. If we look at the 5.7 million in 22 over 16 days, that works out to 356,250 per day. And if we go back to 2019, the last time it was held pre-pandemic, with 6.3 million over 16 days, it is 393,750. So pretty close there, but even with the extension today, there's still a higher per day average on attendees there.
That's enough that I think it would be noticeable. Like I think it's probably always in all of those cases it would be crowded, but I think you'd notice it being even more crowded. Really good sign. Really good sign. So another thing that I always like in these, they collect these stats because they just do, and because they're fun, I suppose.
Beer stats are fun, yeah.
The security confiscated 115,600 Maßkrugs, which are their beer steins, from would-be thieves. So you can't take these home with you. You drink them, you leave them there. 3,250 items were returned to the lost and found. Unfortunately, no flugelhorns this year, but we have heard of that being a thing in the past. Of the most notable things in the list of what was returned, 640 wallets, not surprising, 520 ID cards, 400 smartphones, and 200 keys. So that's a lot of keys.
That's a lot of stuff in general, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, that really is. And ambulance station dealt with, and seems like a huge number, but maybe not when you have millions of people. Ambulance station dealt with 7,620 patients. So that many people needed some sort of assistance, but only 7 children were lost during the festival. And presumably they were all found at some point. So
did they confirm that? So they just said
the article just mentioned that they were lost. I assume that it didn't link to other stories about looking for these people. I think the kids were eventually found.
They're like, let's just drop that last part of the story. We'll just let them wander.
Yes,
we're not lying. Yeah. We're being, what do they say? Frugal with the truth, I think is what they say. Something along those lines.
We're pinching pennies with the truth.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, Brian, speaking of, the growth of non-alcoholic beverages, we're seeing it everywhere. You talked about the growth there at Oktoberfest. We're talking about the hop waters and the growth there. Well, as you would expect, that means big beer is going to start paying attention. If they're seeing a dip there in their regular beer sales and something else is coming up, they're going to get their mitts in it. And really, to be honest, when Afria, now Tilray, I think is when Afria bought Sweetwater, I joined the conference call talking about what their plans were in that, a big diversification in beverages, and you brought weed and beer together, and you may not be able to actually bring weed and beer together there, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of potential for other brewed beverages. So, but we're seeing a lot of other companies that are starting to get in the game. And the latest, Brian, Molson Coors coming after some NA beverages. What do they got planned?
So the big headline is so they're re-gearing and kind of refocusing a lot of their finances on non-alcoholic beverages, including energy drinks, and they seem to be taking their cue from 20-somethings who are more focused on wellness. And I see wellness and I see energy drinks, and I'm like, I'm not sure if that means what you think it means, but we'll just say that's wellness. But the big headline of the story is a non-alcoholic version of Blue Moon is coming, and reportedly it tastes very similar to the original. You have to take the CEO's word for it. That's I think they've only done a little bit of limited tasting. So you're not going to get that for sober October, but you can get that. You can expect to see it for dry January. So that is coming for January. On a side note, Molson Coors is also saying that their shelf space and tap handle assortments of what they have is grown substantially, and they anticipate will continue to grow. I'm a little curious about that because I think Molson Coors is inheriting a windfall from everything that happened with Bud Light.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm a little skeptical at they're seeing continued growth, but I'm like, I think that this is still all fallout from Bud Light. I don't know if that's going to continue going forward. But I also don't think they're going to lose ground once they've got it. Apparently, once you have tap handles, once you have real estate inside of a beer store or liquor store or whatever, it's hard to lose it unless you go out of your way to lose it by not putting product on it. So
yeah. And that's one of the biggest complaints you hear from breweries is once the space is taken, whether it's a tap handle or retail, it's tough. And we've hashed it 100 times before, but with the growth in breweries, that's been the big problem is when there's only 10 breweries, if you've got 20 tap handles, it's easy to make sure you got everybody on tap. But when there's 100 breweries and you've got 20 tap handles, it changes things up.
Absolutely.
Crazy. Well, Brian, as we record this show, the NLCS is what NLDS, the baseball playoffs, National League is tied 1-1. Braves and Phillies. Braves just had 2 days at Truist Park there. Brian, if these nail biters of a game, they just barely pulled out the win on the second one, you're going to need a beer to deal with that kind of stress. And great news, if you were at the games, then Terrapin Brewery Atlanta was there for you to make sure you had something to drink, to not only quench your thirst, but to also make sure that you de-stress with a cold beer. I wanted to throw in a joke here about also if you need something to throw on the field, but I don't think that would do that's justice to Terrapin, so I'm not going to make that joke. If you buy a Terrapin beer, drink it, and then properly dispose of your plastic cup when you're finished with it. That's the responsible and respectable thing to do. But they've always got fun stuff on there at the taps, Brian. They've ran some fun stuff through the summer. As we get into the cooler months, they're sure to have some porters and stouts. We always look forward, Brian, to wake and bake season when it comes up there. Lots of good barbecue. You know what? I'm going to bug him to make sure we get an invite again, Brian. We've been invited to judge the Wake and Bake Off there where they cook food with Wake and Bake beer. That's always a good time. But Terrapin Brewery Atlanta at Truist Park, whether the Braves are playing or whether they're not playing, it's a great place to go, have a beer, grab a bite of barbecue, and just have a good time. So thank you to Terrapin for sponsoring Beer Guys Radio.
Yeah, and is it a Wake and Bake Off without us? We're kind of an essential part of it.
Yeah.
So something else, another thing you really can't go wrong doing is dropping by a Truck and Tap, any of the locations. You've heard me mention it in the past. There are 4 locations to choose from: Woodstock, Alpharetta, Duluth, and now Lawrenceville. And of those 4 locations, each one has 20 beers to choose from. So if my math is correct, you've got 80 different beers to choose from. And do you have 80 different beers in your fridge at home? I don't think so. But if you do, we should talk. I want to hang out with you.
Right.
So with all those options, how do you choose where you want to go? Well, you could do like I do and play Truck and Tap Roulette and pick a random number between 1 and 4. That's the location you're going to. Then roll your favorite 20-sided die, and that's the beer you drink when you get there. So that's easy. You could do that. It takes all the pressure off. You can run off and do that. Or if you'd rather, I have some highlights of beers from each location. So Woodstock is currently pouring North Coast Old Rasputin Nitro, which I'm very much a fan of, and I think I would encourage you to go try that out. Alpharetta has got Toppling Goliath's S'mores Pastry Stout, which sounds intriguing. I've never had it, but Toppling Goliath does good things with beer, so I would definitely be on that if I were at Alpharetta right now. Duluth is rocking Six Bridges Perihelion 6 IPA featuring Cryo Mosaic hops. Big fan of that beer. I recommend you try that. It's Duluth. And Lawrenceville is pouring Monday night's Thai 12 on, which is their blend of their popular barrel-aged situational ethics stouts. So that is something you have to do. So that would be worth the trip out to Lawrenceville by itself. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can go check out truckandtap.com and see what beers are waiting for you when you get there.
You can go check it out. That's absolutely, Brian, we planned this very poorly because the story that we have coming up right after telling people to go out and drink beer has to do with the increase in people drinking at home. So we apologize to our sponsors for our terrible planning there. It was not intentional. But, Brian, the news, we're just sharing the news. We're not telling you. We think you should go out and drink at Terrapin or Truck and Tap or the Nest. We definitely think you should. But it sounds like stats are telling us that more people are drinking at home, right, B?
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're definitely in favor of people. I think we encourage people to go out, drink local, hit your favorite establishments every week. But, yeah. So we started talking about this last week in regard to craft beer's draft problem. And it just seems that most Western nations have not gone back to pre-pandemic on-premise drinking like they had been back in 2019 and earlier. 59% of consumers say they are going out less, and this is thought to be tied to the negative perceptions of on-premise drinking due to growing awareness of increased costs of going out for a drink, which I think was exactly the kind of points we were covering last week. It's not just the U.S., though. It's Canada, it's regions of Europe, it's South Africa, it's Australia. All of these people report going out less at about the same rate, about 60% of people saying they're going out less. The interesting thing about the story, though, is it's a much lower percentage of people going out less in Asian countries. About a third, maybe, are going out less than they did before. There's a quote that I picked from the story that I thought was particularly interesting from an expert, so I'm not saying this. Quote, Asian markets and China in particular attribute a lot of importance to alcohol being part of their social life, unquote. So the pandemic lockdowns fueled an extreme drive for these people to return to normal. And part of normal is drinking socially, and drinking socially means going out. The one interesting exception is Japan. They are less likely to go out than any other Asian country and any other Western country. About 82% of people said they were going out less often than they did before the pandemic, which I find to be fascinating. And I don't have a reason as to why that is. I think just a cultural deal. I don't know.
Man, I think things just feel different. There's been, unfortunately, in our lifetimes, we've lived through a couple life-changing events. And no matter what you do, your life is not going to be the same as it was before. It changes who you are at your core there. So, and we all know that, if you were old enough to remember pre 9/11, life changed. And even when we started flying and stuff again, life is just different. The world is different, and then we go through a pandemic that was supposed to be a few months and it ended up being 2, even stretching 3 years. I've mentioned before, my day job is recruiting. We're still dealing with that with some of our clients with coming off of this with different COVID. There was a little spike again. So we went back to mask mandates and stuff with some of these things. And we're having the fight again. People want to work from home. People don't want to work for, slave wages anymore in the food industry. So we run into these things that really change the essence, the core of life. So even if the pandemic is gone, these things stick with us, and, I think no matter how hard we try, it's just not going to be back to the way it was before. It's just not going to but we could say people are spending more quality time at home with friends and family and they enjoying their beverages there and, put the silver lining on it or put a positive spin on it. And, kind of related, Brian, one thing I'm really good at doing is remembering an article I scanned and remembering bits and pieces of it. So I truly mangle the story when I try and share it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I saw an article recently, and I believe it was specifically referring to the Chinese market and talking about the craft beer culture there. And they said up until recently, many craft beer breweries in China catered to Western taste, Western palates, because they learned or they saw American brewers in the IPAs and doing this and that and these, higher ABV beers and that, but they're switching and moving to appeal to the locals, to the local palate, to the Asian palate. I think that's great, man. I mean, if you look at it 200, 300 years ago, America did the same thing with German Bavarian brews and all of that. We took the immigrants came in here and they said, hey, this is what we know. This is what we brew. And now we've got, fruity pebble stouts with sparkle glitter in them, Brian. It's just a natural progression pretty much. So, and I think, when you have craft beer move the way it does in America over the last several years, we talked to a brewery in Ireland a few years ago, Brian, that said, he's like, we think we're about 3 to 5 years behind America. They're brewing these American styles and catching up with their own trends in that, So, but it sounds like in the Chinese market that they're getting there where they're like, all right, craft beer's got a little bit of a foothold, but why in the world are we catering to Westerners? Let's go for the people here in China. And I think it mentioned like lower alcohol beers and, catering to the local taste. And Brian, I shared a story with you now and I forget, Buy High or something like that. Nate, can you refer back to our Discord? And but there's a beer that's popular in Vietnam that is brewed, and they said it's literally like a week from starting to brew it to like putting it on tap, and it's like a super low ABV, quick. I think it said it used Kveik yeast in there, so low malt bill, Kveik yeast, fast turnaround. But they said it's really popular in certain parts of it. I want to try it. I imagine there's not a lot to it, but if you're looking for a crusher of a beer, it sounded like something that would do that for you.
After you shared that, I think somebody who routinely tweets about beers in, I think, Thailand, he's based in Southeast Asia, said he found it there. And I, until you said something about it, I had completely missed it. With Very everything cool. else going on, I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat. So a quick turnaround type of, I think, wasn't that a case where they deliver the kegs directly to the place? It's tapped, immediately served.
Right.
Yeah. Almost no time to mature or anything like that. Just the bare amount of fermentation. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Nate, any luck digging that up? No. I forget the name of it. I wish I could find it. So I hate sharing that story and then not having the reference point, but
no luck,
Brian, do you see it there? I think we chatted about it. We'll find it. We'll mention it, but it's a low alcohol beer popular in Vietnam. And they said it's, about a week to turn it around from brew to putting it, to putting it out there on tap. So
it's spelled BIAH with an O, and it has a some sort of I can't see it very well, but a squiggle coming off of it, an I. By Hoa?
There's no way we'll say it. I seriously doubt there's any way we'll say that. It looks like Baiho, which is probably that doesn't sound right, does it? So
yeah, it translates to fresh beer, and I'm looking at the little screenshot of. I think you shared it directly with me, and I saw that, and I actually forgot to drill down into it. But it sounds interesting.
Yeah,
and somebody mentioned that, like you said, as soon as I saw it the first time, I saw somebody talking about it afterwards. So. Pretty interesting stuff,
man. Yeah, that's I'm always game for trying new fermented beverages, man, and finding out what people are doing on the other side of the country that I don't know about, even if it's just a little low ABV beer. We brewed that SEMA one time, Brian, which I'm not even sure that technically qualifies as an alcoholic beverage. It's more just a fermented beverage. But,
when you posted that, that's what I thought about. That's the one where you put the raisin in it and wait for the raisin to float, and when the raisin floats. Right. It's ready to go, and it's
then you get you some funnel cakes and go to town.
1% or something like that, super fizzy. Like that's a fun beverage. I should do that again because I enjoyed that, and it's about the most I have time to do in terms of fermentation these days.
Yeah, do it quick. Well, guys, I think that about anything else you guys want to share or anything, Nate? Anything?
No, we're covered.
All right.
I think we got it all.
I think we covered it all for this week. Y'all, as always, we really appreciate you joining us here. We hope you have a great week. We'll be back next week. We'll do it again. So definitely come and join us for the live stream. If you're listening to the podcast, new episodes out every Saturday. If you want them a little bit earlier and you want to chat with us, we'd really appreciate your support on our Patreon, patreon.com/beerguys. We'll get you in our Discord chat. We'll send you some cool swag. We sometimes share some behind the scenes info, pictures, information and stuff. So, definitely something that's a lot of fun. But y'all, thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.